Hey everyone, I'm going to make this video tonight and I'm going to call it Conditioning People to What You Want Them to Think. For years, they've been saying that intelligence agencies like the CIA and all decide what goes on the news, even the commercials, how to psychologically control people to get them to focus on what you want them to focus on. And I was thinking tonight about my favorite subject, like in World War II, how we had oil embargoes because Japanese attacked China. They were in China and they were expanding, and so on a global level, this country was concerned about that because we really were for free peoples and that type of thing. And so that was the kind of news that was newsworthy, and you would see. I'm just using that as an example of something that was really happening in the world. And of course, there was always newsreels and radio news about World War II and what was really happening. Um, Even in the Depression, the Great Crash of '29, there was news put out to what was actually happening, what actually would affect people. The government made programs, and a lot of people say that the government should have stayed out of it. The private industry would have made the National Recovery Act program. It would have been more effective. But these were things that were really happening at the time. And the National Recovery Act that Roosevelt put forward, put people to work. This was like real news, real things that affected people. But tonight, I'm going by the TV, and I'm looking at these natural disasters. These poor people that houses either burned down or were destroyed by tornadoes, and it's tragic, and that's newsworthy. But what was the narrative? The narrative was climate change. Because of climate change, these things are happening, and this is part of conditioning people how to think. And put on your thinking caps. This is part of conditioning right away, which climate change has not really been proven. There's scientists in Australia and Germany and all over the world that don't agree with climate change, and I should say man-made climate change. They agree that the climate is changing, but it's not man-made climate change, which is the big enemy, which is today is more important than our national defense, um, I don't know, the predominant Democratic Party puts out. So we had climate change, and then the next broadcast is about pay equality for women. You know, from 15 years ago, it still hasn't gotten where it's supposed to be. And I'm listening to this news, and if you really think about it, this is all opinionated, um, controlled media narrative to get people to what to think. And the thing is, people are so used to it, they just accept it. They accept, the woman's struggle, and they accept the climate change, and they look at that as, and that's the main stories on the news. They're not talking about, for instance, China, how it's the influences in the Pacific, uh, specifically places in the South Pacific, how they're taking over countries and making them dependent on the Chinese, which is, Red China, which is control of the masses. They control everything they do. It's not freedom based. It's corporate based, money based. Um, but you don't hear anything about that. There's all kinds of important things going on in the world that you never hear about, that affect people, that affect how we're living and all. No, but you hear the narrative, you hear the climate change all the time. You hear I don't know, social justice type of things always put forth on the news. But in a way, that's just a matter of people's opinions. and they've conditioned people to accept that as fact, as factual, you know. And so anyway, I wanted to make a little video because I really don't think that the government, the world global government, the New World Order, really wants people to consider um, power struggles, potential wars, things like that that would have been newsworthy like in the 40s and before that really would have affected us. No, they want to couch everything as in the climate and um, I don't know, or in the pandemic, uh, you know, the mandates and that type of thing. But it's not, and yet, and if you want to talk about the pandemic, my congressman here talked about ivermectin and how good a therapeutic it was. He's a Republican congressman. He said it on a town hall, and we've never heard anything more about it because that's been shut down. You can't talk about therapeutics. You can't talk about ivermectin or what was the other one they shut Trump up about? The point is, you can't talk about actual therapeutics where the doctors and not the government might be able to help you. No, it's all man-made. It's all controlling the populace. It's all controlling the narrative in the news with some kind of thought up agenda to get the people's minds where they want the people's minds. And I was thinking, you know, this is exactly what Satan's going to do when he comes. He's going to have you either you submit to his authority, submit to what he's saying, or you'll be executed ultimately. And I can just see the end around the corner. I'm not going to say when it is, but I can just see how everybody's being conditioned to not really think, but to accept what they hear and what they see on TV or corporate driven media, global driven media. And there's going to come a point where if you even question what you're fed through the idiot box or other news sources, that you're going to be a criminal. And I don't think people even clock this, that it's going on. But it's always a narrative that's wanting to be put forth by governments, by controlling people. And it's not things that actually affect your lives. They're, like I said, they're opinion based. Now, whether you believe climate change is man made or not, that shouldn't be what drives weather reports and what drives the news. It should just be factual. It shouldn't be theoretical, but yet it is. It is because this is a form of mind control that's taught in the news and taught in the universities and all. And people have lost the ability to think. And if you ever notice, like with the therapeutics, if you have any doubts or any questions, they'll start hammering that real hard. That oh, those are no good. The therapeutics are no good. They don't work. They don't work. It's the vaccine, the vaccine, the vaccine. You know, not even natural immunity. You can't even talk about that. It's the vaccine, vaccine. And if you start questioning it, I notice on social media or other places like conservative thought, if you will, that right away they'll reinforce their narrative to anything that runs contrary to it. And I was wondering if anybody else notices this like I do. All right, have a good Christmas. Bye.